In this lesson, we'll enlarge the forehead and increase the size of the brow. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we've made a lot of progress towards our fantasy character concept. Let's take a moment and just make a quick comparison and just see how far we've come. So that is quite the difference, just turning on and off the visibility of our current state of manipulation. And we want to go ahead and bring up our sketch that we created in lesson 2. And at one point we focused on the top of the head there, just increasing the brow and kind of making the head a little bit more pointy and perhaps a little bit taller. So that's what we're going to focus on in this lesson and just kind of work our way around the top of the head here and explore how we can do that. Okay, so we're starting off in another group titled Forehead. And we're also starting with another merged head. So let's go ahead and zoom in here, and we're going to focus on first just building up the brow. Now we've already removed the eyebrows just by cloning down some of that information, some of that skin over here in this area of the forehead. And so we basically want to add on to that, build onto that, and really extend out his brow. And I think that'll just give him an overall more primitive, kind of primal kind of look. Again, I'm imagining this character living in kind of a subterranean environment. And so I kind of feel like having a deeper, heavier brow would just really add to his character in living in that kind of environment. So we're going to go ahead and grab our lasso tool over here in our toolbar, and I'm going to pull from the cheeks to basically build the brow. So we'll go ahead and start off on his screen left brow or his right brow. So I'm just making a selection, and then we're going to go to Layer via Copy after right-clicking. All right. And then we'll just go ahead and hit Control-T and free transform that. And now we're just going to kind of strategically place this hunk of flesh that we've basically pulled from his cheeks over his eye right here where the eyebrow used to be. So that's feeling pretty nice. So what I want to do now is right-click again, and we'll go to Warp. We'll just kind of pull from some of these different areas of this little grid that the Warp function enables, and just kind of start to manipulate and reshape this hunk of cheek. That way we can basically build out his brow. So I kind of want it to extend outward over here just a little bit to really show that brow. Alright, so that's looking nice. We'll go ahead and just commit to that. And so now we can come in and start to blend that in. But first, let's go ahead and let's title this layer Right Brow. Okay. So now we want to go ahead, jump back to our merged head layer, and let's just do the same thing on the opposite side here. So it'll be his left brow this time, or if you want to think of it as the screen right brow. So I'm just kind of pulling from this general information right here, that this kind of area where the cheek is kind of being scrunched upward, much like we did right over there. So that's looking about right. I may want to go ahead and just adjust my selection just a little bit more though, just looking at that. Okay, let's go ahead and go with that. So right-click once again and go to Layer via Copy. And we'll go ahead and free transform one more time. And just kind of rotating that, we'll bring that up. And we may want to go ahead, I'm just kind of holding down Shift and scaling this up. Alright, very nice. And let's go ahead and right-click once again and go to Warp. And we'll just kind of start to basically bend this flesh around appropriately. Basically kind of just build up his brow here a little bit, and we'll kind of blend that into the skin that we already have placed there where we covered up his eyebrows. Alright, so we're coming along here pretty nicely. I'm just kind of trying to reshape this to a point where I think it'll work nicely for the brow. Okay, let's go ahead and commit to that. And now what we'd like to do is go ahead and start blending this in with the remaining skin that's basically around it. But first, let's go ahead and name this layer as well, and we'll call it left brow. Alright, excellent. So now we want to go ahead and make a new layer, and we'll call this brow blend. Okay, so on this layer, we're going to grab our healing brush tool, and we may also use the clone stamp as well. Let's go ahead and kind of zoom in here, and we want to kind of just start blending some of this in. So we're going to go ahead and start over here on his right brow, and on our brow blend layer, we'll kind of just start blending in some of these pores. And again, the healing brush tool is a great tool. You know, it really does match a lot of the texture and the contrast and the lighting. So we can just kind of come around here and start to just work this all in together. And periodically, it's good to kind of zoom out and just kind of see how things are looking. We've got a little bit of a highlight over here that we want to kind of start to blend in as well. Very good. And we may want to go ahead and increase the size of our brush just a little bit. Alright, now let's go ahead and jump over to the opposite side here and kind of start to blend in some of this information as well. Again, I'm just kind of sampling pretty closely from just kind of the surrounding areas. And so the reason I've pulled from the cheeks, in case you're wondering, is the cheeks have just a nice kind of fullness to them, just with the way they're being lit and kind of being pulled up, and they just got some nice pores in there as well. So it's kind of nice to pull those up in here and kind of weave those in with the skin we've already cloned over the eyebrows, rather than just try to stretch and manipulate the skin that we've already placed there. So just still coming around here, just kind of sampling just from areas kind of around the skin here. And just kind of weaving this cheek flesh over his brow area. And so far I'm really liking how it's starting to kind of weave in. This is, again, kind of a tedious process. Spending a lot of time just kind of looking at it, analyzing it, kind of seeing how the textures in the skin pores are just kind of reacting and working in specific areas. But overall, I think we're coming along very nicely. We can go ahead and kind of start to make a quick comparison just with our blend layer, turning on and off the visibility of that. And we're starting to get it there. It's starting to blend in very nicely, starting to work in that brow. Let's go ahead and change gears really quick, and let's go ahead and start to jump into liquefy and begin to manipulate the overall top of the head. So what we're going to do is make another merged layer. So before we do that, we don't want to include the background, nor do we want to include the neck just yet, okay? So again, to make a merged copy of all these layers, because liquefy is not going to work across all these layers, we can go ahead and hit Shift, Control, Alt, and E on our keyboard, okay? And so this will give us all that information merged together. So now once we've done that, we can go up to Filter, go back into liquefy, and begin to just basically manipulate the top of the head. Again, we kind of want to enlarge it overall and maybe kind of make it a little bit more pointy. So just kind of thinking about our sketch that we worked on in Lesson 2. So what I'm doing now is just kind of masking out any information that I don't want affected. And so in this case, I don't want to mess with the eyes or the nose, but it would be okay if we let the ears be moved in this case. And I'm going to give just a little bit of leeway right in here. Just right next to those ears. Okay, so once we've got that in, let's go ahead and grab our forward warp tool. This is just, again, a great tool. And we'll go ahead and increase our brush size. I'm just kind of pulling up the top of the head just a little bit there. And then increasing my brush size even more, we'll kind of start to pull out just the side of the head. Each side. And just making it overall larger. Now let's go ahead and decrease our brush size. And now we can kind of make his head just a little bit more pointy. So again, just kind of thinking about that sketch as I do this. Alright, that's looking really cool. And we may want to go ahead and zoom in and just kind of look and see how it's looking overall. And I think that's going to work. Let's go ahead and go back to Photoshop. We're going to click OK. Alright, let's bring back up our background and our neck layer. Alright, so that's looking really cool. Now on this layer we can basically continue using our healing brush tool and just kind of further blend in that information. We got a little bit of stretching that has occurred, but that's okay. Go ahead and kind of size down our brush just a little bit. And we'll just kind of continue cloning out that stretched information, again maintaining the skin pores as we go. And I've said this in earlier lessons, I like to do that rather than try and do that all towards the end. It could just be really messy and super confusing. Alright, excellent. Okay, so that's looking really nice. So in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and continue on by focusing now on the ears. As you recall in lesson 2, one of the first things I think about actually when thinking about something that looks like a goblin or an orc is large pointy ears. And so we're going to focus on his ears and just really go back into Liquify and start to basically enlarge them and manipulate them and just really transform how his ears look. So stick around and we'll see you in that lesson.